Swifty? What's up, Tom? How you doing this morning? We're live. This is not the smartest guys in the room. I need my screen to be smaller so when we stream and I go, we're live, my hands are still in the picture. What's up, JC? Swifty, come on up.
Good morning. Good morning. How are things going today? I heard you were starting to tell me before we got in here, you got a new hard drive.
Yeah.
You upgraded your internet speed at your house.
I feel like a new man. And then the thing that I love the most, so I got a new hard drive. Somebody came out and put a new modem in, and I hooked right up to it. But number one, the guy was a Steeler fan too. Jody, he already invited me to his house to hang out. I mean, that is the power of connection.
How's like it?
What's that, Swifty?
How's your wife like the new hard drive?
Where are we going? Where are we going? All right, Swifty, Monica, what's going on? Not the smartest guys in the room. Welcome. I got a new hard drive. The coolest thing I got, JC, John, if any of you have this, tell me about it. But I got this thing, they call it the Buffalo, and it is in my closet, and it is, I don't have to use flash drives anymore. It has multiple hard drives on it, and everything gets saved to it. So I would go to bed at night, even though I had flash drives and things like that, thinking someday I'm going to lose all this stuff. And so now it is safely, it even has a key, which I don't know why it needs a key, but seems important. What do you think, Tom?
I mean, it likely has a key because often those are designed for work environments, right? For office environments. And so you want to have it lockable so that you can restrict who has access to the actual physical hard drives within it, right?
There you go.
So somebody can't like just reach in, take one of the hard drives out and walk out the door with it, right? So that's why they often have a lock on it. I have one. I have a RAID enclosure. I don't expect you to know what that means.
Nope.
But I have a RAID enclosure sitting on my desk that I use for editing. And it holds 4 drives. I have 2 RAID drives in it. And it's got a key and lock, and the key is just in the lock on my desk because I don't think I'm in danger of stealing my own hard drives, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, it's myself and my wife are the only people that really have access to my office, so I'm not too stressed about somebody stealing my hard drives. But that's why it's there.
All right, I like it. All right, let's talk about JC. You posted yesterday. Facebook was down. Facebook, Instagram were down. JC had the post of the day. So JC, you want to tell me what your post was? I know it was about that, so go on.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, great morning to everybody. It's good to see you guys. I just think it's so it was really fascinating. Like, I was more excited about it than anything. I mean, I was actually on a big training, ironically, at the time, where I needed to show the people I was training something on Facebook. So that was the first time I was like, okay, so let's go. I'm going to share my screen. And then I noticed it was down. So for me, I just kind of moved into this observation of like how people are going to respond, you know, because that's the only thing we control in life. And what I found interesting, and I think it was very beneficial for people that noticed it, because a lot of people said, I didn't even know. They're like, what outage? And I'm like, you know, maybe it's not important for you to know if you didn't know. But, you know, Instagram and Facebook went down, and it was the first time that I think people got to see how tethered they are to it. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, I can take time off of social media, or I don't like this, I don't like that. But when it's removed from you is the first time you recognize how much you use it to communicate and, you know, share your brand. So what I noticed, which I thought was fascinating, is how people were like almost like looking to play a game, looking to find another way to keep themselves busy. And they started going to like Twitter or whatever, X, and sharing. I have a private community, as an example, that people communicate in, but traditionally not as much as they did yesterday. So anyway, I just thought it was a great gift of awareness for people to recognize. But, you know, what I noticed as soon as it came back, everybody probably just forgot about it. So it was interesting. I myself enjoyed the process.
Hey, JC, so private community you have, where do you house your private community that is off of these platforms?
So this is something that my wife and I are like dedicating like 95% of our time this year. So we've built for a while. I don't know if anybody here has heard about the platform called School, Skool. So we built something called the Make Sense Academy, which basically the business plan of it is to have a high value, offering. We've got a business school in there. We've got a communication school. My wife's a therapist, so she teaches people about relationships and setting boundaries. And we have a morning mastermind, and it's growing really fast, that we charge very, very little money for. So if you were in it, you would see that it's very much like Facebook, but it's got a lot of other cool stuff, including like a wall to communicate. But what's cool about it is that we are in control of who's in it. These are people that are actually working with us. So in that environment, it's like Facebook without all the bullshit. Excuse my French. So people were happy to be able to see that they could go message each other and chat on the wall. But we refer to it as a psychological safe haven. So it was cool. It was cool to have like a backup generator, during that time.
Good stuff, man. I appreciate you sharing. I think all of us are always looking for different places to house platforms and stuff, so you're not dependent.
Well,
on these
let me
things.
share one cool aspect from a business mindset. There's other platforms like this, but just the idea, and maybe somebody needs to hear this today. There's a different type of a business model emerging right now where people are paying a low monthly fee that anybody can afford and providing high value. And the first time I came upon this was I saw a guy that I knew very well, making probably like 10 grand a month doing this and genuinely giving really, really good stuff, that it was helping people grow their business and their life. But I just recently saw that now people are making like 100 grand a month in a model like this. So just sharing, not the smartest guy in the world or in the room. I always come here to see if I can learn something new. It's just a new business that's emerging that we're growing fast in and capitalizing in, where rather than doing one-on-one support and coaching, you're doing it in a group setting, so that you can facilitate a low, totally affordable price and just go nuts with your value. So we're having a fun in there. So maybe somebody needed to hear that.
Hey, right on, brother. Thank you for sharing. Go on, Tom.
I was just gonna say I had no idea that Facebook went down yesterday, and I kind of feel good about that. I guess it says like it says to me anyway. Like I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that, right? Because it says to me anyway that I'm not spending so much time or too much time. At least I wasn't yesterday on social media. That I literally had no idea that Facebook and Instagram went down. The only indication I had was that when I pulled up my internet browser, I had to sign back in on my computer, and I was confused about that. But yeah, and then I saw a couple of posts and people talking about it. But yeah, I had no idea it even happened until way later. I have no idea how long it was down for. It literally made zero impact on my day. So I feel good about that. I was just wanted to pat myself on the back a little bit.
There you go. You get a pat. Okay, so this brings me into another subject I wanted to talk about today, just traditional networking and being out and about. So Swifty, so do you, like, let's say all this stuff goes down, whatever. Is there a tried and tested way that has worked for you, Brad?
Well, I go back to my old roots. I mean, if I'm in the work mode, which I wasn't in yesterday, I, like Tom, didn't know that the internet went down or that Facebook went down. I was in the garage doing some woodworking. I just felt like getting up and doing that. So I found out, like Tom, I had to sign in. I go back to my phone. I would reached out to some people, and last night I was just hanging out and had that urge to call some people to just stay in contact with, see what they're doing, see what's new, share what I'm doing. And I made about 8 phone calls, and had about 3 conversations and left some messages. So I like still to touch it, reach out and touch somebody that way. And it's probably about 7 o'clock at night. And so, if it was during the day, maybe hop in the van and cruise somewhere, but I'll go back to the phone.
Swifty, me and you talk on the phone every few days, and sometimes Tom might say, or Julie probably will know this, I am often to pick up the phone and just call rather than texting and stuff like that. And they're like, you could have just texted me or emailed me, but sometimes I just feel like, even now, even more so, sometimes I think I got to get back to that more. What do you think, Brian?
I'm not a texter, rarely. Now, if somebody says text me, I will text them, but I also let them know that, my preferred method is just call me, because texting is, I don't want to say difficult for me, but with my lack of hand function, but I'd rather talk to somebody, because people could read a text while they're taking a dump. People could read a text when they're doing 1,000 things and not really be engaged. Where if you have them on the phone and you can read that they have time, I don't know.
Oh my God, Brian, did you just say that while they're taking a dump?
Yeah, tell me you haven't done it.
This is not the subject. Hey, Brian,
I'm not talking to anybody in the bathroom, Brian.
Oh my God, Brian, you're so funny.
It happens. I guarantee it happens that people are reading their texts.
It's gross, man. Hey, Brian, I see Debbie Griffiths
If
here.
someone is talking to me on the phone and they go from natural voice into a heavily echoed voice, I know they walked in the bathroom. I tell them to call me when you're done, because we're not talking then.
No, John, I was saying people read texts in the bathroom.
Come on. All right, moving on.
All right, yeah,
Hey, Brian.
Let's just accept that nobody poops like a caveman, right? Everybody takes their phone in there with them. We get it. Moving on.
There we go. Brian, tell us
How did
who's
this turn into this?
right. That's what happens, Julie. Brian, tell us who's going to be on the show today.
I have one of our, one of the people that had come up to pitch us, which was nice, with so many, and I've really tried to make this my goal, to reach out to the people that had pitched us at Creatacom, and when you go to these things, and I don't know, Tom, you might have made the point, and Drag and I, you might have also, we leave and it's kind of done with, right? We leave, it was great, but it's over, and that's a shame, because it should just really be the start of what's going on. So I really tried to focus and make it the point. So Debbie Griffith was one of the people who came up and pitched us, and she's the best-selling author of Torched, Burnt by a Gaslighter, and she's created some avenues, to create more awareness about domestic abuse. So she will be on my radio show today, and I've reached out to others that came up and pitched us, and I want to get them first and try to follow through with kind of what we talked about. And then, there's so many people I haven't had on the radio show yet, and I want to get more people on the show. I've been Tom, Dragon, John. I've had Julie, and so there's so many other people I want to get on the show. So I've reached out, and I've, to a lot of the people that were on the show that pitched us, and I want to try to grab them first, and then move on to so many. There were so many people that, for me, will make, great guests. So that's who's on, Debbie Griffith. So.
She's a star. We know her well. A friend of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room, a friend of Motivation Champs, a friend of Creative Con. We love Debbie Griffiths. Check her out. Follow. Tom, what do you want to add there? Go on.
I was just going to say, absolutely second that. Love Debbie. She's a sweetheart. So glad I got to meet her at Creative Con. It was really nice after all this time, speaking with her in Not the Smartest Guys. It was really cool to actually get to meet her in person. She came up and introduced herself to me, and it was great to get to chat with her. So excited for Debbie to be on Brian's show today. I wanted to jump back to where we started before that conversation sort of derailed into a soliloquy on everybody poops. I wanted to talk about networking real quick. If I could get back to that, is that cool? So I just had something I wanted to share that was, is very top of mind for me. I'm in a bunch of networking groups. I'm part of some networking organizations. And in one of the networking groups, I occasionally play a role where I help present some education and give people some tools for how to improve their networking. And one of the things that I talked about yesterday was this idea of reinvigorating dormant connections, right? Which is something that I think a lot of us, or probably all of us, honestly, could benefit from. So there was some research that was led by a guy named Daniel Levin from Rutgers Business School to examine the benefits of reaching out to these sort of dormant connections or dormant ties, right? And we all have these people that we just sort of fall out of touch with, right? Like life gets in the way, businesses evolve and change, and you lose touch with people over time, right? It happens to everyone. And so what they did was they asked the people who participated in the study to make a list of 10 current connections and 10 people they haven't reached out to in 2 or 3 years, right? And then what they did was they asked the participants to reach out to those people for advice or help with a project. And what they found was that these dormant connections were extraordinarily powerful in providing people with more creative ideas. And one of the most surprising things they found is that even though these connections had been dormant for 2 or 3 years, the trust that had been built before the connection went dormant didn't erode over time. That trust was still there. It was as if, they had just had a conversation yesterday. And so one of the things that I was encouraging people to do in this networking group that I was speaking in yesterday was to go through their contacts and reach out to people that they hadn't spoken to in a while and just reconnect. You don't have to have an ask. It doesn't have to, but you can just say, hey, you popped into my head today, wanted to reach out, see how things are going. Tell me what's new in your life. Would love to catch up, right? It could be that simple. And then, or, hey, I have a project I'm working on and I thought of you because I think you would have some amazing insight on this project, right? Something very simple like that. And I would encourage everybody to reach out to a few people, and it's something you can do every week, right? You can just find a few connections every week that have kind of gone quiet over time and reconnect with them. And I would bet you money that you will find that those dormant connections will yield really good return for you, that you'll be glad that you reached out and reconnected with those people. So just wanted to share that. There's a bunch of things that might keep you from doing that. You might think it's going to be awkward. You might think it's going to be difficult, but at the end of the day, it's, I think we all have those good friends, right? Where you don't talk to them for a while. And when you do, it's like no time has passed. You fall right back into things. That's more often than not, that's what happens. So reach out to those old connections, reach out to those dormant ties. Don't be afraid to reconnect. And utilize that network. You've grown your network over time. Just because you haven't talked to somebody in a while doesn't mean that you have to pretend like they don't exist. So just wanted to throw that out there. It was an idea that I had from a conversation I had yesterday, and it was apropos to the networking topic. So there you go. Hope that helps.
That's a good one, Tom. I think I could add that into my daily or weekly routine pretty easily. Our friend Chris Worth used to have I think it was like support 5, reach out to 5 or something, 5 over 5 or something like that. And it was just kind of like a more structured way of doing that same thing, but good stuff. All right. Not the smartest guys in the room. We do this every Wednesday. Jim, RJ, Monica, Brandon. What's up, Brandon? I've been listening to Brandon. This dude knows a lot of stuff. Brian Alves in the house. Brian, love this guy. Met him at Creative Con. Good dude. Phil, Marcella, Debbie, Howard, John, Julie. Okay, we're going to get to John. Networking. Do you do it, John? Apps that go down. Do you care? Go on, John. What, you got any tips for us today?
Networking, as I always say, is going to be a two-way street. Otherwise, all one-way streets end in dead ends. So many networks, so many collaborations really don't have a two-way thing. So it's going to be mutually beneficial. And when someone proves to me that they're not mutually beneficial, they don't care about that, I trust them and I move on. I don't revisit burned bridges. But as far as like social media, yeah, Facebook is an integral part of how I get new customers. I have my stuff scheduled. There's a lot of other things I use, but we made a major milestone on downloads of the show. But it's something I use. Is it something I freak out about? No, I don't. Like for Julie and I talked yesterday on the phone. I use Facebook. That's the number one source of traffic for social media. Then LinkedIn, then Newsbreak. Those two go back and forth. But that's for driving traffic. I look at the numbers, but I also use Medium. I signed up for that. I'm using Substack. I'm using a bunch of other things. So this is just one tool out of the arsenal, and that's the way I treat it. I don't use Facebook for anything really more than communicating and building community and audience for my content. That's it. I don't have time to respond to people's stuff, and I really don't pay much attention to it.
John, what if somebody says, John, I love this video so much. It's the best ever. I love everything you do. How about like positive stuff? You respond to that, or you just don't?
No, I don't respond to positive or negative. I let my people do that. That's engagement. It's very rare. I did respond to someone this moment ago. He said something about, justice should be done to fake profiles. I said, what fake profiles? Question mark. Are you referring to? But like if someone says a positive, that's great. If someone says a negative, that's great too. I really don't respond because I'm moving on to building more awareness of what I do. For me to spend a lot of time there, it's diverting my attention. If I responded to every negative comment, and there are very few, but if I respond to every negative comment and got into a back and forth with these people, I would have no time to work on generating consumers for my show. It just wouldn't happen. So I don't do it anymore.
No, I just want to dig in on this. So, John, what about like super fans or something like that? Do you think it hurts? I'm thinking about like a guy like Gary Vee saying he used to respond to every comment till he just couldn't anymore, the positive, whatever. Is that the case, or
it's a time thing? It really is. The super fans are going to be super fans regardless for as long as they're going to be. But I got to keep the areas of content open for them to build that community. But this is a very long conversation. The main thing is with social media, I just don't have the time to respond to everybody. Some posts, I had one of a police canine that has throat slashed, and they had video from taking inside a squad car and rushing to emergency room. The dog survived, thank God. But that one had reach of almost 600,000 3 weeks ago. And it's probably got 3,000 comments. I don't have time to respond to those comments. The vast majority are positive. There's a few that are negative, but the negative ones, my super fans handle them. They respond usually, and they build engagement. So I focus on engagement, and in order to get engagement, I get content. But the engagement piece, I just don't have time for it to be me.
All right, right on, brother. Thanks for clearing that up. Not the smartest guys in the room. Julie, what's going on? Empire builder. We used to call Julie the Pied Piper of Clubhouse. I want to start that again. The Pied Piper Clubhouse. Has anybody noticed, Julie, in Flash, if you have? I looked in, it seems the last couple of days, there's been a lot more live rooms present on Clubhouse, and they're really showing up more. Julie, thoughts? Go on.
I'm not sure. I haven't been on Clubhouse a lot lately, but it's the best experience ever. And I love the idea of haters that John was just talking about, because I think when people have enough time to write something negative about you, that means you have arrived. People care about whatever you're talking about so much that they take time out of their day to write something negative. Okay, let's go. And, with Facebook going down, the topic you guys were talking about, I loved it. It was like silence. You didn't need to be engaged with anyone. And I took the opportunity to send out an email because, I'd love to talk about how to do things that don't require social media, because social media works in some instances, but I don't believe people know how to use it correctly. So I wrote an email. I had 50% open rate, which I think is pretty good. And because you have an audience, and if you don't create another audience outside of social media before it goes down, because it was very interesting, it went down on Super Tuesday as well. I thought that was, if you like conspiracy theories, that's kind of an interesting take on it. But what it really means to me is that if you don't have all those things in line, like an email list, like your blogs, your writing, if you cannot reach out to your audience outside of social media, you are in trouble. Because we don't own social media. And I know Tom is like nodding and saying, yes, 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 yes.
Let's do it, Julie. Julie, hold on. We're going to talk about how you're building communities, but because I like to read things from now and again, I'm going to read some comments that I find interesting. So we do this room, Not the Smartest Guys, every Wednesday. We talk about all things media. It could be from publishing a book to making a video to what you're doing on TikTok or how to get more views or interaction on Facebook. So I see somebody on YouTube has some comments, and I just want to read these comments. When they say hi, then they say, what is this? Then there's a question mark, and then they say free Israel. Then they say, is this pro-terrorist or pro-Israel? Okay. They say Trump 2024. And then they say face blue smiling. I read these because none of them apply. But also when, let's say some of you are doing interviews, doing podcasts, doing things like that, as you start to share your story, you might get on a show where people ask you questions like that. And you're blindsided by somebody asking you political questions. You're blindsided by somebody asking you, is this pro-terrorist or pro-Israel? Well, my answer to these questions is I'm Dominick Domasky. I have a company called Motivation Champs. I do inspiration, smiles, and positivity. That's all I know about. I can share with you about trying to have a better day. I can share with you about hoping people open the doors for each other, but I don't know about these things. So I'd like if we could just move on from that. It's not something I know about. So that's my answer. How's that for a good answer, Tom? Just get off of these uncomfortable questions and get back to what you do know about. What do you think, Tom?
I mean, I guess people get lured in or feel pressure to engage with stuff. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it, right? Like you don't have to engage. So if you're not comfortable with it, if you don't like the topic, if it's not something that you want to talk about, then just don't, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, you just have to remember, you can't ever control what other people do, but you always can control what you do, right? You always can control how you react. So yeah, I mean, I think if you don't want to engage, if you don't want to talk about it, that's totally your right. And you don't have to. And I think people just get caught up and forget sometimes that they always have the option of just not. Right.
Yeah, for sure. So John, Brian, JC, Julie, as podcast hosts, before we get to Julie, Debbie, how do you handle that if somebody, just flash if you want to start it off, if somebody asks you a question that you don't want to talk about, what do you do?
Ignore them. I'm like Tom. No one, just because someone says they want to discuss something doesn't mean I have to join them. And that's
so John, if I'm on your show, what do I do? You ask me a question.
I hang up. I'm going to tell you right now. I've told people we'll stop the interview. It's recorded. If you don't follow the format, I'm going to end it right now because my time cannot be replaced. It's up to you.
Swifty, what's your answer? Go on, my friend.
Oh, I would do the same thing John said. I would either just brush past it and move on to my topic. That's probably most likely what I would do is just ignore it and move on. If they persist, then do what John did.
Good stuff. JC, do you want to cover that since you go on, you host and all
Yeah,
that?
I always take a different approach, just because I'm fascinated with human behavior. So whenever somebody says something stupid, my knee-jerk reaction is to do everything that you guys are saying. But I like to ask them. I first of all, I pause and I just go, huh. And then they kind of want to know why I said that, because when somebody says something, they want a reaction from you. And then when they say, what? I go, oh, I was just trying to think about why you said that. So I like to put people in a place where I allow them to think about what they're trying to do, right? But my podcast is based on the why behind things. So, but yeah, just like John says, I mean, if somebody comes at me in non-podcast land or in life or in social media and asks me a question, I can just like I delegate tasks to people on my team, I can delete people too.
Fair, brother. Thank you. Okay, Julie, back to this. Julie, real quick, and then we're going to get to Debbie and Jason. Julie, building community off platform. Do you have a suggestion so somebody doesn't get all their eggs in a Facebook or all their eggs in? Jason gave us some ideas before. Do you have suggestions?
I would suggest starting your own event, a networking event. Do it live. It's fun, right? Seriously, that's where the best connections are made. And a lot of us here are family now. So, I mean, I can say the majority here on stage, and in the audience, we've become family and we support each other, even if Facebook is down. But make sure you know how to reach them outside of social media. Because if you don't, then the connection is completely lost. And I think yesterday was a good lesson for all of us. Even if we don't put a lot of effort into social media, we need to think about our business plan and how we do things in a real way. And I just don't, well, social media is real. Again, people don't know how to use it properly. So take everything off of social media right now, meaning make sure you get people off your social media page. And I even talked to John, I'm like, we need to get you an email list. You have like 1 million downloads. You have all these people, but what if it all disappears tomorrow due to like hacking from Russia or China? What do you do? And that's something everybody needs to think about, I believe. Thanks, guys.
Good one. Get those email lists. Love it, Julie. Okay, our friend Debbie Griffiths, who's going on All Things Inspirational with Brian P. Swift today. Debbie, what are some ways you connect or reach out other than Facebook?
Well, good morning, everyone. I have to say I kind of missed our Creative Con event. I really did enjoy it. Miss seeing you all. Anyway, yeah, I'm pretty much in alignment with everybody else. Don't put your eggs in one basket. Growing an email list is something that I am trying to work on, but there's more than one way to communicate, and social media is not the only way. There's somebody just suggested meetup, meeting people in person, blogging, podcasting. How about picking up the phone and having conversations with people? So there's a lot of ways to keep the relationships going other than Facebook per se. So I land my plane.
Thank you, Debbie. Don't mind me. I'm navigating while we're talking here. People that are going to come up and speak and not speak and things like that, and I see them popping up over the top of the screen. So it's weird. But Debbie, we appreciate you. So you're gonna bring it today on Brian's show. So Debbie has a story of self-worth, and what do you think when you get that opportunity, Debbie? You're going to come out swinging?
Oh, absolutely. And not only do I have an opportunity with Brian today, but I have one with John tomorrow. So, Dragon really inspired me with Don't Let Things Stop there at Creative Con. I've been trying to be active and stuff as well, and continue on the wonderful creations, relationships and stuff that I've formed there. And, let's just all help each other out. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Debbie. Good stuff. So, Tom, back to this. If we don't want to stop something that happened at Creative Con, and you said reach out to people that you didn't call it a cold connection. You called it somebody you hadn't talked to for a while. What are some ways you can do that? Then we're going to get to Jason and Dr. Touchy.
I mean, I think probably the sort of easiest, right, is likely via email, right? To just drop an email, say, hey, especially if it's somebody, I called them dormant connections, right? So it's not somebody you had a falling out with. It's not somebody that ended on bad terms. It's somebody who you had a relationship with, who you had a positive connection with. And then over time, you just lost touch with each other, right? Which happens, right? We all have instances where you have somebody who you consider a good friend, that you think of fondly, that you haven't talked to in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? We all have people like that in our lives. So I think, reinvigorating those dormant connections is easy via email, right? It's an easy thing if you have their email address to just shoot them an email and say, hey, was thinking of you. You popped into my head. And here's a good way. So I got this friend, Carlo, right? He's a good friend of mine from high school. We've known each other for, far too many years at this point. Because of how old we are. But we've known each other for a very long time. And he is one of the best people at staying in touch with folks that I've ever met. He was always somebody who was good at connecting people, good at staying in touch, good at networking, just naturally. And I asked him one time, not that long ago, how do you do it? How do you stay in touch with all of these people? It seems like an insurmountable task. And he said, it's really easy. When somebody pops into my head, I reach out. It's that simple. And he's like, and it's not complicated. I don't have to don't put a lot of pressure on how I reach out. I just reach out. So he says, you popped into my head. And so I sent you a text and just said, what's good? ? That's it. Right. So I'll just randomly get text from him. What's good? Or I'll randomly get a gift from him. Right. Something like that. Or he'll randomly send an email connection because I came up in a conversation with. He called me the other day. He was meeting with someone that I knew, that he discovered that I knew in the course of conversation. And so he called me in the middle of their meeting and said, hey, I'm over here talking to Ron, blah, 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 blah. Right. So, Carlo is a really, really good networker, a really good connector naturally. But I think there's lessons that anybody who's not naturally good at it can take from that. And it's very simple, very, very simple. Just when you think of someone, if they pop into your head, even if you haven't talked to them in a few years, just shoot them a text, right? Shoot them an email, maybe pick up the phone, right? It depends on what your relationship was with that person, right? And how you tended to communicate. I think you'll know that better than anybody else. I could tell you email's the best way, but it's not in every situation, right? Depends on the relationship. So I would say, what your relationship with that person is like and how you used to communicate before you lost touch with each other. So I would say use that as a guideline, right? If you used to speak on the phone a lot, use the phone. If you used to email a lot, use email. If you used to text a lot, text them, right? Whatever the case is. If you used to, if you were pen pals and you used to send letters through the post, do that, I guess, if people still send letters. I don't know. Whatever works. I don't know. Send them a Western Union telegram. I don't care. But just reach out. Somebody pops into your head. I try to take a page out of Carlo's book. If somebody pops into my head, I try to shoot them a text. I'm not always good at it. I don't always succeed, but I try to do it when I can. So I mean, that's what I would do, is just look for those opportunities and send somebody a text, send somebody an email.
I like this, Carlo. I like what he's up to, and makes people feel good. Let them know you care about them. You know what? In my world, I'm working on this. I don't think I'm as good as Carlo, but I think I have common interests with a lot of people. So, like you're saying, if a common interest, like I have one guy I used to work in pharmaceuticals with, the only guy that loves NBA basketball like me. So it could be 11 o'clock at night, and I sent him a message about like the Celtics Warriors and who's going to win the title, and then somebody else we're talking about birthdays or hot dogs or media or a video they made where they used better eye contact, like, yeah, okay, got to say something. I just try to not let those moments pass. But if this dude Carlo is doing it intentionally too, I have not made it intentional. And so I think what you're saying there, what if each of us made it intentional to reach out to knowing, hey, I'm just going to do a little better job reaching out rather than just because, like me, it's common interest and I want to talk about dirt track racing that day. Go on, Tom. Then Julie had something to say. Go on, Tom.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say too, I think a lot of people sort of, stop themselves from doing this kind of thing because they get nervous about it being awkward, right? They get nervous about that conversation being awkward. Are they going to ask me, like, why haven't they heard from me in so long, right? But remember, like John was saying, it's a two-way street, right? So as much as they haven't heard from you in a long time, you haven't heard from them in a long time either, right? So don't put that pressure on yourself. And then the other side too is like, just think of it from their perspective. Try to put yourself in their shoes. How many times has someone reached out to you to say, hey, you popped into my head, I was thinking about you, and I wanted to reach out and say, I hope you're doing well. Let's catch up, right? How many times has that happened and you've been irate about it? How many times has somebody reached out to say, I was thinking about you, I hope you're well, let's catch up, and you were like, screw them, what a jerk, I can't believe they would do that, right? Never. It doesn't happen. That's not how rational people react, right? So if you had a good relationship with this person and you just drifted apart, don't be afraid to reach out. They're going to be super excited to hear from you, right? They're going to be glad that you reached out. They're going to appreciate that you let them know, and it's going to make them feel good to know that someone else was thinking about them, because it always makes us feel good to know that other people care, right? It always makes us feel good. So if anything, you should do it because in reality, you're giving them a gift, right? You're making them feel good because you're telling them that you were thinking about them, that you care about them, and that you hope they're doing well and you want them in your life, right? Those are all very positive things. So you're doing a good thing by reaching out and reconnecting with people. So stop putting roadblocks up and stopping yourself. No one's going to get mad at you because you said, hey, I care about you, let's catch up. No one's ever going to react that way. So stop thinking they are.
Those are all good points, Tom. I'm just reading the comments while you're talking. Brian Alb says podcast studio at Staples is his new hangout. He said that elevator is his number one place for clients. JC congratulated our friend Lauren on her engagement. I saw a picture of her and her lovely fiance. Phil Hill said, sorry, I driving and bumped my hand. Brandon Wilson says, I've got clients at bars. You never know where you'll meet someone. I was listening to Brandon and Jason talk about Brandon the other day. It was a good conversation. Jason, man, you're up. We're talking about networking. We're talking about connections. Would you hold on? Julie clapped first. Julie, you clapped before, so let me touch on Julie and then go on, Julie. And then we'll go to Jason. You can announce Jason. Go on.
Oh, I would be happy to do that. Thank you. And I just want to say something that Tom mentioned. It kind of had me thinking. He mentioned the idea of connecting through like letters. And I'll tell you what, Dom wrote a letter to my parents and they've received it. And that's all they can talk about. It's like, oh my God, Dominick, he wrote us a letter. It was so nice. But we forget about that personal touch with like handwritten things. And what I used to do, it just made me remember that connected me with my clients, sending them not only the handwritten letter, but also like a little swag or something that you're thinking of them. That's all we care about. We want to feel like we matter. So, that being said, Dom, great. You have inspired me to maybe start doing more of that personalized handwritten letter. There's nothing better, and it is the best way to feel like you're really appreciated, whether as a client or a friend. Now we have 72 the architect, who is never lost for words, and I'm sure he's going to deliver us some amazing information here at NTSG, not the smartest guys in the room. Make sure you share the room, guys.
Jason, you're
Good
up,
morning.
man. Do it.
Good morning. Social media is just touch points. That's all it is. It's just touch points to connect to people. You may be relevant, but not always reachable. And I like what Tom was saying. He brought up letters. So there was a book called A Simple Act of Gratitude, and I write my inner circle of people once a month. And those are 10 individuals from across the world, and I handwrite letters, and I get handwritten letters back. And it's always a memory to be able to say, this is a real contextual thing. And when we lose context to what we actually do and what we really touch versus a digital world, like, yeah, Facebook went down. Okay. And then my life was still going. I didn't have a crisis fall, but it was just a small interruption of services. And, if you're working for your greatest purposes in what you curate, yeah, it's an avenue and it's an extension of you, but it's not the end of the world. It's an end of a period of time to think about what is really feeding your bank. And I was just having a conversation with somebody where I was saying, I was born into debt, but when I realized what I was really worth, I became an asset. And do you realize the asset with your personal touches, your extension, your words? I'm good at words. I'm good at connecting, and I'm also good at disconnecting, and I'm also good at ruining my reputation at times. But I'm okay with that. And I don't have to prove anything other than I'm working towards a better asset. So when I look at my network and I talk to amazing people, I want to see the best for them at the end of the day. But when I write a letter, it's really an extension of that, to see your process to gain. And I always, my friends that I have, I have no expectations of you, none whatsoever. And I ask no expectations of me, just trust, receive, and give. And that's a form of love. Love is something you can't keep. It's always something you can give. So when you look at your network and you look at your extensions of how you facilitate your network, whether Facebook, Clubhouse, LinkedIn, whatever it is, it's a love and extension and experience of your life. And that's pretty much it. And that's all I can stand on right now. So thanks for having me up on your stage.
Spot on, brother, man. We appreciate you. And I just back to something before about this. Jason, you mind about if I go into the rebranding of your brand there?
There's no rebranding. It's just branding.
Okay, brand. Okay, Jason. Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, because I started out 9 years ago podcasting, and my podcast was in infancy, immature, a lack of direction, a lack of what it's going to achieve. Right. I didn't know what I really wanted. I know that I had a voice like so many people do. So what I'm doing, and I've got to give a lot of credit to many of the people who I've engaged with on this stage, and a special shout out to Brandon, who I resonated with. So when we started the process of, the branding, it was like, can you get me to the one thing I really, really want? And he asked me a question in the very beginning. First question he ever asked me was, what is your future state? Okay. Now think about that for a minute. Now, sir, you might want, a body of evidence. You might want some pay. You might want some money. But when you get to that, then what's above that? And And when I started thinking about that, I was like, there's no rebranding. It's just branding. Every step you make with every goal you take, just like the police song, somebody is watching you. So why not walk a good line where people can see you, connect to you, relate to you? And that is an elevation of your maturity. And if you're really aligned with your brand, like I'm going to be wiping out a lot of my Instagram, realigning what I'm going to produce, get direct to where the results I want to live with, and the next adventure. And that is branding. That is what people want to get behind. They want to get behind an experience. They want to know that, like, I'm not a cog in the wheel. So branding right now is like I'm underground, and the certain people who get to be around me. Thank you for coming to my rooms, Dominic, and we have that discussion. I'm not going to tell you how, because I'm learning how, but now I'm learning, okay, now this is a business. This is not a hobby no more. It's no more fun. I can associate with whoever I want, but branding, when you really get down to the nit and gritty of it, and you really want this, you don't realize how many people's brands are a freaking mess. They don't say anything about what they really want or what they're really after. It's kind of like a guessing game of checkers, like, should I move here or there? And there's no just like inline message. So that's what I would say.
Hey man, thank you for sharing, and thank you for the support as always. We appreciate anybody, and I will speak for Tom on this. We appreciate all of you for coming to the room, whether this is your first time, whether you've been here 100 times, whether you come for 5 minutes, whether you get bored with what we're saying and leave and come back again another day. That's what this is about. Who knows? Sometimes we're talking about things that might not interest you. Sometimes we're talking about things that are exactly what you needed to hear on that day. Take the opportunity to connect with the person beside you, send an email. Now that we know, send a letter, whatever, make a phone call, connect with them. Hey, Julie, what did your parents think about my handwriting?
Well, they could read it, so that was a good
okay.
thing.
That is good. That is
but
good.
I would challenge. I think we should do an NTSG challenge and challenge like everybody to do in the next week something like more personalized in terms of reaching out, whether it's someone here on stage, and then we can kind of find out, because it's so important and you forget about it. You really do. You just have me thinking a lot today. Thanks.
That's a good idea, Julie. And I love challenges, and I probably live in this world where you're like, sometimes they accept them too quickly without thinking. But to anybody in this room, reach out to one person, 2 people, 5 people, whatever number you put down. I like to start small. Between this week and next week, I'm going to reach out to one person I haven't talked to in a while in some way. What was the feedback? Feel free to share it. We'd love to hear that next week. If you reach out
Can you
to
write that down, Dom, so we remember?
I'll put it in the comments. Prepare. I will write this in the comments here. Jason flashed, and then we're going to go to Dr. Tachi. Jason, what do you want to add there?
Add real quickly something. When I mentioned a book called Simple Act of Gratitude, it's based on John Kralik, an attorney who really failed bad. And he wrote this book. He wrote a letter for 365 days a year. He wrote 365 people, an act of thanks that he knew, clients, friends, people he met on the or business. He read, and so it's a mode to still connect the physical world and the metaphysical world. And I would challenge anyone, and Julie threw something down, so maybe you can write somebody over the next 5 weeks, write one person a letter that their address, and write them and tell them what you're thankful for, and pick up a book of Simple Act of Gratitude and read this story. It was a really amazing story that I read 5 years ago. So John Kralik, A Simple Act of Gratitude.
All right, do that. Tom, you're up. I'm going to write this note in the bottom. I can't do 2 things at once unless I'm chewing gum. So go on.
I was gonna say, I was like, what's with the I was starting to wonder if there was an issue with the internet on my side or something. There was like a delay. There was a big delay before Jason started talking after you threw it to him.
Well,
And then there was a
you
delay
asked
going
me to
back to
do.
you.
Everybody's asked me to do 5 things here. Come on, man. All right, do your thing.
Well, no, you don't have to. You don't have to do what other people are asking you to do, man. You choose to do what other people are asking you to do. But no, I mean, I like that. I like when people share, share books that are meaningful to them or have given them value. Especially as as an author myself, I hope people start doing that with my book and start sharing it with other people. Had just a cool experience last night. I'll share real quick. Just a little moment that I was super excited about. I went to a networking event last night. A local studio here in the Hudson Valley was celebrating 10 years in business, and so they invited the whole sort of production and filmmaking community out to celebrate with them, and hosted an event at the studio. And I went to that last night, and within a couple of minutes of walking in the door, I had 2 people ask me if I had any copies of Legendeering on me. And I did, because I was smart and paid attention. Somebody told me to always, I think it was you, Dom, told me to always keep copies in my car. And so I had some copies in my car, and so I had 2 people ask for and then buy copies of my book last night. And I made it a point to I'm trying to also be a good businessman too. I made it a point of making those sales early, going out. I said, you know what, I'm going to go get those for you right away before I forget. And then they were walking around holding my book as they talked to everybody for the rest of the night. So it was just a fun little thing, to just to go to a networking event and have 2 people, one of whom I know, the other of whom I've met once before, but I don't really know, both buy copies of my book, and then proceed to go around and tell people about it and talk about it. So it was a fun moment that I had last night that I just wanted to share real quick. So Dr. Tachi, we're talking about all kinds of things today, but primarily sort of networking and reinvigorating old connections and stuff. So would love to hear your thoughts. How do you tackle that? Do you reach out to old connections that you've lost touch with?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I do periodically, especially like you were saying, Tom, when something crosses your mind that reminds you of someone. I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to such and such in a while. Let me go ahead and do this. And what resonated with me is just the same way that you have not been in touch with them, vice versa, they have not been in touch with you. So it's never a thing to think about in terms of, oh, are they going to say, no, who cares? They probably won't, because they're equally as guilty of not being in contact with you. So I definitely do. I like to go actually through the phone book. Is it phone book? No. Yeah, phone book. What is it called on your phone? Is
Contacts.
Okay, there we go. Phone book contacts, yeah. That's what it is. So I like to go through the contacts, and there are a lot, but I'll just go through and, oh, this person I haven't talked to in a while. It's also good, like if there's somebody that I haven't talked to in a while, that phone number is no longer valid. That's also helpful. So I like to do that definitely with personal contacts. One thing I noted, because we were talking about sending notes, personal notes, and all of that type of thing. That's also very helpful in a business sense as well. So with my reselling business, I'm a reseller on Poshmark for people who don't know. I'm good for, I like to wrap things to give to people the same way I like to receive them. So I like for people to take care when they send me something. And there are a lot of people will just throw things in a box, which I can't stand. But I like for things to be a certain way, so I try to reciprocate. But one thing that I do is, with the thank you card, I did order some cards, but it's blank on the back. So I take the time to handwrite a thank you and enjoy your item and that type of thing, or if there's something personal there, I take the time to do that, particularly if I have done a live show, because I do live selling as well, and I've made a connection with that person. So I'll say, thanks for stopping into the live, and we're going to XYZ next time, something that may be a personal anecdote from that live. So that really personalizes it, and that they feel like they're part of the community and they'll want to come back. So it's also very helpful in a business sense to keep those contacts and keep those connections, and those same contacts and connections when it comes to holiday time or whatever time, you can send out something personal then, because I already have their addresses. So it's like, thank you for purchasing from me this year. Hope all is well. So that contact is very, very helpful. And that goes to the point of, if you only leave things on the app, on the social app, or whichever app you're using, you never get to go beyond that. So I've taken it beyond Poshmark. I've taken it beyond that. That's why I was like, yesterday when Facebook and Instagram were down, I was like, whoo, good, a break. Because I already have my way to contact people outside of this. And, even if you cannot leave things to social media, because at the end of the day, it is not about the platform. It's about the people. These platforms can and will fail you because they don't owe us anything, because for the most part, we're not paying. So those are my 3 little anecdotes for today. Hope you enjoyed. I rest the mic.
Thanks, Dr. Tachi. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's one of those things. When you were just talking about, oh man, now I lost my train of thought. I blame Dominick. He was messaging me and it distracted me. Also, just because he's an easy target and I can see him and it's making him laugh.
Real nice, Tom. I like this thought of Dr. Tachi's. I'll let you think about what you were saying. This thought of, don't blame the social media. You're not paying. Don't expect. Like, not like I live in this world. Like, for me, I expect jack from them. So I am, our friend Prof T used to say, don't use it, don't let it use you. So I feel like I know at all times why I am doing what I do. So there might be times where somebody would question, well, why'd you, like John, like why do I share a link? Because I am trying to take the people off the platform to the other link at the time. And well, you're going to have less views of that. Yes, I know. And then some other time I'm going to ask an engaging question right before I plan to take people off platform, because I know, okay, well, now I need to get my algorithm back up in a way. So okay, now I need to, so you'll see let's go LinkedIn. Today, fresh video, not off of another platform, share video directly to LinkedIn. I know that's the reason why I did it. So it will probably get more traction on LinkedIn because it's not an off-platform video. Then I might share other pictures where I'm trying to get you off platform. Sometimes I'll go just question and no picture. All these are usages in a different way, and I do it every day on all these platforms. Sometimes I'm sharing a static picture with a comment. Sometimes it's link with comments. Sometimes it's links in bios. Sometimes it's links in the comments, all of it. And I know why I am doing it. So if I know this has a better chance to trend, this one's not going to, because I broke every stinking rule they have. So to Dr. Tachi's point, that fires me up. Don't expect or wonder, well, you're not paying them, so of course they can do what they want. Yeah, they gave you 5%. They showed your stuff to 5% of your followers, 2% of your followers. Yep, that's the game. So, Tom, did you remember? Go on.
I did. So the thing that I wanted to hit on that Dr. Tachi was talking about was this idea that keeping contacts alive and keeping relationships alive and keeping people in your network, I think is often people get overly strategic about it, right? They get too strategic about it, and they'll look at someone and say, okay, well, that person is never going to be a customer or client, so I'm not going to foster that relationship. I'm not going to keep them in my pipeline. I'm not going to talk to them, right? And I think that is a huge mistake. it flies in the face of sort of the first principle of networking, right? And that sort of first grounding principle of networking is that it's all about relationships, and that when you build relationships with people, not only are you building a relationship with them, but you're also gaining access to their network, right? So it's not just who that person is, but it's also who they know, right? And that's one of those things that, by keeping those connections alive and even reinvigorating some of these old or dormant connections that we were talking about earlier, you gain access to a huge collection of different people, right? If you haven't talked to somebody in 5 years, imagine how many people you meet over the course of 5 years. How, as your career evolves, as your business grows, as your work changes, maybe you shift careers, right? Like, how many people do you meet in a 5-year period that you stay in touch with? A good amount, right? And so these are all new people that maybe have never heard of you or the kind of work you do. And you reach out to this old connection because they popped into your head. You send them a message and you say, hey, was thinking about you, would love to catch up. Tell me what's new in your life. Here's what I've been up to, right? And they may turn around and go, oh my God, I have a good friend or a colleague that really needs your help, right? But you never would know about that connection if you just looked at that person and said, yeah, but they're never going to buy from me, so I'm not going to bother reaching out, right? Remember, it's always relationship first, right? Relationship first, sales, right? And business will follow. But put the relationship first, put the value first, right? Reach out to the people. You never know what can come if you just kind of say things out loud. I'll give you a perfect example that happened to me yesterday, right? So I'm looking at ways to bring in some help for me and my business, for sales in particularly, right? And it's mainly because I'm not a salesman and I don't want to be a salesman. I don't want to invest the time and the effort and energy to try to become a salesman because it's not what I want to do, right? So like, why would I invest that time? I'd rather have someone else do that work, someone who really enjoys that work, and who's better at it than I am, do it, so that I can focus on what I enjoy and what I'm good at, right? Which is not sales, right? Those aren't the same things. So I was on the phone yesterday with a friend of mine who also happens to be a salesman, and we were chatting, and I was telling him that I was looking at options and trying to figure out how I was going to bring on this sales help and what it was going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, you know what? Here's what I think you should do, and here's how I'm going to help you with it, right? He's a salesman. He's looking at starting a business, doing sales training, right? And so he was like, hey, I'm doing this sales training stuff. I'd love to actually use you and whoever you bring on as a bit of a beta test. So I'll do your training for you, right? I will find somebody. I'll work with you. I know your business, right? I understand your business. I'll work with you to train them to do sales for you, right? And to do appointment setting for you and to fill your pipeline and all these things that you need to get done. I'll train them for you and use it as a beta test. It'll help me improve the offering that I'm doing in my sales training content, and it'll also help you. We both win. And I was like, beautiful. But it never would have happened if I hadn't been on the phone with him and I hadn't opened my big mouth and told him about what was going on in my life, right? And what I was thinking about doing. So you never know where those conversations are going to lead. All you have to do is actually have them, and opportunities will present themselves. And then when they do, you just have to accept that opportunity, right? You have to take the step through the door, right? When it opens in front of you. But yeah, it's one of those things like people always overlook, not always, often overlook, that when you grow and maintain a network, it's not just about the person you're talking to, but you're also gaining access to and connection with everybody in their network. So it's an exponential growth opportunity, not a linear growth opportunity. And that's just, I think, something that often gets overlooked. And I wanted to hit on that. Dr. Tachi made me think of it, and I wanted to say it. And there you go.
What do you think, Dr. Tachi?
All I can do is thumbs up, agree, and co-sign. what Thomas said.
All right. Yeah, we haven't heard the cosign for a while.
Yes,
Glad.
I always co-sign on what you guys say. Yes.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you. All right, let's cruise on here. Okay, quick show and tell, and then we're gonna go to Richard. Richard, all right. So every week we do a show and tell. This one is sitting beside me, and so I am going to pull it up. This show and tell, this green book. Look, and I'm in the book business. Green book. It doesn't even have a cover on it, basically, and I would think that is like unacceptable. But it actually does have a little logo right here on the front of the book. And this is actually the front of the book. This is a book by Dale Carnegie. It's called Lincoln the Unknown. It's one of my favorite books. So I believe in good covers and all that. But a lot of times it's what's in it. In this book, Dale Carnegie had he admired Lincoln immensely. And he did his own research about Lincoln's failures, Lincoln's times he was depressed, Lincoln, the times that he ran for office and didn't win, and was defeated over and over and over. And in Lincoln the Unknown, Dale Carnegie, the great Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he writes his story. So one of my favorite books happens to be sitting right beside me, and I will turn to these pages and read about when Lincoln and Anne Rutledge, that was Lincoln's first love, his true love, and when she passed away, Lincoln laid by her side in the graveyard for about 2 weeks and cried every day. So there was all these things that you don't know about Lincoln that Dale Carnegie chronicled. So that is my show and tell. What do you think, Tom?
I like it. I think that's the first. Is that the first? It might not be the first, but it's, as a publisher, you haven't used a book as a show and tell very frequently. I think maybe, no, you definitely have before because you used the book about your relationship with your mom. So you talked about that, your relationship with your mom. So that was a show and tell, and you may have used the first book that you ever published as a show and tell also. But it's interesting that, like, as a publisher, you don't lean heavy on books as a way, or as a show and tell. It would be an easy crutch, I feel like.
Yeah.
But you don't. So I like that. I like the idea of the book. It's interesting. I've never read it. I also haven't read How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is probably the most well-known book from that author. Now here's the other question that comes up. Is how do you pronounce his name, right? Because in New York we have Carnegie Hall, but you called him Dale Carnegie, and I've heard other people call him Carnegie also. So my question is that like just we pronounce Carnegie Hall in New York? Because I bet you wouldn't say Carnegie Hall. Every time I've ever heard something advertised as happening at Carnegie Hall, it's pronounced Carnegie Hall. So is it Carnegie or is it Carnegie? Like, is it
interesting?
In New York, we also have Houston Street, which is spelled exactly the same way as Houston in Texas, the city, and is named after the same person. Houston Street in New York is named after Sam Houston, who is also the city of Houston's. The city of Houston is also his namesake, right? So, city of Houston in Texas and Houston Street in New York are both named after the same guy, Sam. Pick how you pronounce the last name. So that's why I'm wondering is it Carnegie or Carnegie? And also, does anyone care? But anyway, that's what popped into my head.
All right. Well, this is fair. Your friend Chris says it's Yin speak. And so I got beef with you, Chris. I never said Mount Dew. A couple weeks ago, you said I said Mount Dew. I said Diet Mountain Dew. I don't remember saying Mountain Dew. So, I mean, he says it's yin speak, which sometimes people that live around Pittsburgh, there is a thought that they are Yinzers and speak in a different dialect. But Chris, I swear I didn't say.
No, I think it's because you didn't say mountain. It was because of how you pronounced mountain, like you said mountain.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not buying it.
I think it's just because you said it with a D and not with a
Right.
T.
And now back to in Pittsburgh, we have Carnegie Mellon, and it's not Carnegie Mellon,
Which I would call Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah.
As a New Yorker, I would say Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna find out.
Yeah. See what Google it and then push that little button so it will play. All right, Richard, networking, reaching out to people. How are you doing it, my friend? What do you got for us? Hey, Dante's in the house. We met Dante. Richard, you're here. 3, 2, 1. Come on, Richard. Accent on the wrong syllable. Okay. Yeah. Let's go here. Hey, did anybody see last night that Joey Chestnut ate 39 pierogies in 2 minutes? He went up again at halftime of a Cleveland Cavs game. 3 people challenged Joey Chestnut. They added their combined score together. They ate 23 pierogies, and Joey Chestnut ate 39 pierogies. Now I'm watching the basketball. I'm watching the Cavs Celtics game at the time, and they come back from break, and the commentators started talking about it. And the question was that, and they weren't, because they were showing Joey Chestnut. I don't know who said it. One of them said, "What's a pierogi?" So John J. Wiley, do you know what a pierogi is? He's probably working away. So,
Yes, I do, and they are phenomenally delicious.
what do you like in your pierogi?
I have there's potato, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Or there's cheese. That's the two.
You can get sauerkraut. You can get
Yeah, I'll pass it as sauerkraut.
sauerkraut's a good one. Jalapeno too.
And here's what I love: just butter and garlic and salt.
Yes, that is great. Dr. Tachi, have you ever had pierogies?
This is the funny thing. So I grew up in upstate New York, in Buffalo. And Buffalo is predominantly Polish, Italian, and Irish. So, which is also why it's very Catholic. So I grew up around a lot of Polish people, but never had a pierogi.
Oh man, you got to get in. When I had a restaurant
in South Buffalo, Dr. Tachi.
Oh really? Oh wow!
Yeah, my ex-wife is from South Buffalo, and really? I'm not, but I love that area of the country, except in the wintertime.
It's horrendous in the wintertime. Yeah,
so bad.
It's awful. So I got to get in on it. I would love to actually.
You have to get in on it. When I had a restaurant, my mother-in-law made them for me from scratch. And then we also fried them. They were great. Okay, we will move on from pierogi talk. But just so you each know, and this is a point of that you need to add into your knowledge base, at Pittsburgh Pirate games, in about the 8th inning, there is a pierogi race. And we have mascots that are dressed up as pierogies. There's Sauerkraut Saul, Jalapeno Hannah, and they race every game the whole year, and they keep track of it. Pierogi Potato Pete, yes, and then they walk through the crowd. People get their pictures taken with them. It is the stuff. All right, Richard, if you flash.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a pierogi and a gnocchi?
To me, a gnocchi is.
I can't say it right.
Yeah, well, you could. A gnocchi is. I consider it just it's more Italian, and it's a dough ball basically, and like it's just and a pierogi has something inside of it. The toppings that I am discussing, the sauerkraut, the cheese.
Thanks for making me really hungry. You need to stop.
That's what I think. All right, Dante, man, we're talking networking. I don't know if you've been in this clubhouse room before, so if you haven't, we appreciate you, man. So we're talking networking. How do you network with people? Do you have you ever eaten a pierogi? Go on. What do you got for us?
Oh man, hey, good seeing you guys again on the app for the first time. I saw y'all in person. That's normally the other way around. Um, yeah, networking right now. I've been networking a lot on the Owl app. I kind of was on a hiatus last month because just with going to Chicago and work. But yeah, like the Owl app, it's a lot of like professionals right now. Obviously, this app. And it's funny because right before I came out to create a con, I'd actually been really networking a lot on Owl app, and there's a ton of podcasters on there. It's like literally how a lot of people are connected. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So probably right now for like in the podcast realm, kind of building my brand. That's the space that I'm in right now with that. So yeah, man, that's how I'm networking. And then obviously like showing up to I think Creative Con in the last 3 months was like my second seminar. I went to I did a Tony Robbins thing. I did a Aspire thing. If you guys ever get a chance to go to Aspire, super duper epic event, just really transformative event, honestly. And then, so I kind of got addicted to seminars for a while. So yeah, and the Creative Con was the latest. So yeah, a lot of that has been working. I'm in the Tim Story World Shakers, and I'm in that. And so there's a lot of just pretty influential guys in that. So yeah, that's how I'm working it now. And hanging out with y'all right now today. I'm networking. Good seeing you guys.
We'll take it, man. Hey, where you out of, Dante?
I'm down here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, ATL. I've never been down that way. Hey, Dr.
Wow.
Tachi's down that way.
Yeah, it's a good place.
I am sort of, yeah.
See, I'm listening. I know what's going on. Hey, Dante. Okay, so just real quick on the Owl app, and then Tom's gonna give us a wrap up. Are you monetizing the Owl app, or are you using it more for connection?
I'm officially an ambassador. I actually just but I have to step it up because last month I kind of fell off. So I get, if I make a certain amount of calls per month, I do get I do get bonuses and stuff like that. The primary focus on the Owl app for me, and I'm actually, ironically, I just sat down now at my laptop because I do the fitness consultation stuff. So I'm working on an assessment for people. And then the other idea, obviously, is once I kind of I'm kind of really curating a lot of my material right now because I don't want to just jump out and start jumping on podcasts just to sound intelligent. I want to actually have some tangible stuff that I can really support people. I've always done like the fitness training, in my local area, but that's how I'm really using the Owl app right now. I'm getting a little more intentional with it this month. Actually, going to make some outbound calls, do some assessments for people, see how I can support them and their fitness journey. That's primarily how I'm using the Owl app. I am working on some other stuff. Actually, the Creative Con really got me into. So what I'm really, and the other thing I'm working on is finding the podcast that you guys inspired me to do was finding your flow. So in everything that we do, whether it's just any professional setting, work that we do, even just being a podcaster itself, I'm an actor, I do a lot of auditions, is finding our flow. You're a publisher, like finding our flow, how we find our flow, what it feels, what it means to us. And so I'm actually working on like probably about 100-page book right now for that, and then how that relates to just my acting career, different stuff like that. Um, so I'm kind of curating a lot of stuff at once. I'm sure you guys can relate. But primarily, like, yes, getting that done, getting that podcast going, and then doing and then adding that in, and adding in the fitness assessment mindset stuff with the flow stuff. So it's kind of a work in progress. It's just kind of a unique, separate idea, something different than what other people are doing. And then and I actually have another business I'm starting on top of my day job. So it's kind of like I'm having a hard. Sometimes I'm like, okay, where do we start? Where do we go? And I'm just like, just use your time as effective as possible. That was a bit of a rant, but that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
It's all right, man. I asked the question, and we love finding flow, and there's nothing wrong with having pillars under whatever the main. It could be. I'm going to look see what Dante's last name is. It could be the Dante Miles brand, and Dante talks about fitness. Dante talks about business. Dante talks about all things finding your flow, whether that's health, business, relationship. I mean, there you go. So, all right, that's all I got, Tom. I got no more knowledge. You want to give us a wrap up, Tom?
Yeah. So I just learned something very interesting as I jumped into doing a little bit of quick research, trying to figure out the correct pronunciation um, of uh, of Dale Carnegie's last name, right? And here's what I found, which is not what I expected to find. Um, you talked about Carnegie Mellon, right? As you call it, as it's pronounced in Pittsburgh, which
is Andrew Carnegie. Go on.
which is
Yeah,
Andrew Carnegie, right? And what I didn't know, and maybe you did, but Andrew Carnegie, who also is the Carnegie who donated the money for Carnegie Hall in New York, was no relation of Dale Carnegie. They are not related. In fact, the way Dale Carnegie spelled his name after he published his first book is the same as Andrew Carnegie's, but that's not the original spelling. The original spelling of Dale Carnegie's last name was Carnagey. And he changed it to actually help with book sales by drawing a loose association to Andrew Carnegie. So what I found out was, in all of that, finding out that they're not actually related, that Dale Carnegie didn't come from a privileged background, that after he got out of, he was actually from Missouri. And after he got out of the army, he ended up going to drama school in New York and didn't find success as an actor, but then ended up going into public speaking, and finally conducting a sold-out lecture in 1916 at Carnegie Hall, and then starting his career as an author. So what was most interesting about that is that not only did I find out that there was this whole story behind this simple question that we asked, which was how to pronounce the name Carnegie, right? Finding out that this person, Dale Carnegie, was not actually who I thought he was at all, right? And not any relation of Andrew Carnegie's, but also that their names are pronounced differently. So
Andrew's from Scotland, and so they put the emphasis on different syllables. For example, look at the words in Great Britain, oregano, and over there they pronounce it oregano, spelled the exact same way.
Thanks, John. So anyway, yeah, I mean, exactly. So basically, Andrew Carnegie was a Scottish industrialist, right? Scottish American industrialist. He very clearly emphasized in radio interviews conducted back in the late 19th, early 20th century that the correct pronunciation of his name was with the emphasis on the second syllable. So Carnegie is how Andrew Carnegie pronounced his name. So New Yorkers who call it Carnegie Hall say it wrong. But every New Yorker calls it Carnegie Hall. We probably also mispronounce Houston, but no New Yorker is going to stop calling it Houston Street. So in New York, it's Carnegie Hall, but the man it's named after was Andrew Carnegie. And Dale Carnegie pronounced his name Carnegie, like the hall, and was spelled differently, and not any relation to Andrew Carnegie. So, just one of those things. It goes to show you never know what's under the surface if you do a little bit of digging. And if you ask a question and go after the answer, you'll learn something along the way. And I think the same is true of kind of how we started this conversation today, talking about networking and how to grow your network, how to improve your connections with people. Sometimes all you have to do is ask the question, right? How are you doing? How have you been? We haven't talked in a while. Let's catch up, right? Sometimes all you have to do is ask the question, and you're going to learn all kinds of interesting things, which you can benefit from. And I got to be honest, now that I know all of that about Dale Carnegie, I'm much more inclined to actually read some of his books. So I'm going to have to grab myself a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People, and maybe, what was it? The Lincoln, say it for me, Dom.
Lincoln Unknown. I got another one here, How to Stop Worrying, too. Yep, go on.
The Lincoln Unknown. I'm less likely to read something called How to Stop Worrying. That title does not speak to me.
Lincoln the Unknown is fabulous. Read that first, and you'll be in tears. You'll love Lincoln even more. You'll love Dale Carnegie even more.
All right. So the Lincoln Unknown, there you go. But I never would have known if we hadn't asked the question, right? So sometimes it pays to be that annoying person who always asks why. And I was definitely that kid. But anyway, there you go. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you benefited from being here this week with us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, and hope you go on to correctly pronounce Andrew Carnegie's name and Dale Carnegie's names. Thanks so much for being here this week. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure to share, like, subscribe, follow the room. We broadcast all over the internet, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, the platform formerly known as Twitter and Twitch. So make sure you check it out, share it with your friends, help us grow the community. We do this for you guys. We're here to help and to provide answers for everybody who comes into this room and this space with us. So please help us grow it over time. We really appreciate you. We love you. And we thank you for being here. We will see you guys next week, and Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. For Dom, I'm Tom. And until then, have a great weekend, great rest of your week. We love you. We'll see you next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Bye-bye.